All right, hopefully I've gotten the bugs out here. I hope that everyone can see my screen. Sorry for the delay. Let's see here. Okay, good. Sorry for the delay. I was just trying to configure the site to work appropriately, but let me just give an intro about myself. My name's Eric Swenson, user experience designer. Today's session we'll be going over just a few things in SharePoint and Office 365 to kind of give you a feeling of sort of the new features. Some of them aren't necessarily completely new, maybe a year or so, but people that don't have a full Office tenant, this may be new to you. So I kind of want to just kind of go into exploring some different features within Office 365 and building a couple pages and going through it. So showing the different variations there. So first off, thank you for joining. You can use the chat to, and I'm going to check that periodically. I actually have a URL that I'm going to send out that is just a survey. So just view that link and go to that page, fill out the survey. It's just a quick little survey used within Forms. It's a feature within Office 365 that allows you to fill out different, kind of like a survey form. This one is completely anonymous, so you don't have to authenticate through. It basically just allows you to fill out a survey and then you get results. And I'll show you the forms component within this demo as well. So first off, we're going to start with Office 365. This is kind of like your landing page. So I have a tenant, sort of like a playground for myself. And it has all the latest features. So as Microsoft comes up with new features, you're able to kind of see those things happen and as they're released. So the first thing here is this app launcher. So SharePoint, I've had some background in SharePoint over the years. I started in SharePoint probably in 2003, doing just custom development, branding, that kind of stuff. And over the years, it's been a while for SharePoint to kind of modernize. They're at a point now where they're starting to use Office 365 as a new platform to do a bunch of different things. It's not just lists and libraries and that anymore, and creating portals. I think it's sort of morphed into a different tool set. So we'll kind of jump right off into it. From the main screen here, you have your Launchpad, your launcher. And within here, it's kind of interesting where you can actually drag and drop these to kind of reorder them as you need it. And I think over time they'll sync so that if I go to one of these other ones, it'll actually keep that setting. I think that's pretty nice. But I noticed on a few of them, they haven't migrated to the newer app launcher. So you may get a different screen coming from one of those. So it's one of those, I think they're making progress, but I think there's still areas for improvement for consistency. So the other component here is these are your dashboard for all the sites that you access. When you go to a particular site, like this team site here, this is sort of the standard SharePoint look and feel that you'll see. For a team site. They haven't really upgraded this version of this template yet. They've upgraded some of the back-end lists and libraries, but as you'll see here, this is not really that responsive, and it's really one of those, like, if I go into the documents, they've upgraded this to be that new experience where you've kind of got your documents here and you've got your preview panel, and this is responsive. It does allow for responsive views, but they haven't sort of done that to this home page. So one thing within team sites that you can do is create pages. And actually, I'll show a little bit more of that in the communication site, but I'll also show the differences, slight differences between the team sites and the communication site. So from here, you can create a site. It'll give you two options. One is a team site, one is a communication site. We just saw the team site, but if I go to create a new communication site, I'm going to create a Jeep site. Let's call it Jeep. And site, you can have a different URL and description. The other option is you can show these different types. So it could be a topic, it could be a showcase, so it's slightly different, and then it could be a blank one. Just choose topic here. It's creating the site. So at that point, it's curating the site, and I'll show you an example of what this communication site looks like. So this is a pretty much as you create it, it gives you this sort of hero image at the top. It gives you a bunch of placeholders, news, events, and these aren't real information. It's just placeholders. And as you add information, you can it just gets populated. So from here, the biggest component of communication sites, it's like a place to create news articles and share information. So pages is one of the biggest areas within the communication site. So you can create a new page directly from here, and you can say multiple columns, single column, blank. Blank is sort of the the default here. You can start from scratch. And then it just gets you right into that page. So one of the things that I was looking at is this new Jeep. I own a Jeep Wrangler, and I noticed that the layout of this page was kind of very similar, where it shows a lot of large imagery, some text, and so I kind of wanted to think about replicating that. So here, when you come to this page, just call it Jeep Wrangler. I can then add an image, so I can upload. Let's say use this banner one. Add. What's kind of interesting here is that I can then move this around to kind of get the exact location of where I want it to be centered. Then you have these circles here where you can click on them to add new components. So here there's a text, so I can add a simple text. I'll just use my Lorem Ipsum here. You can then add in like dividers. You can add another component below here. One of the other things within here, you'll notice that they have sort of the side-by-side components. One of the things within this page that you have to do is kind of think ahead. Is here you might need two columns to show those two images side by side. So here I would then add an image. Maybe use this one. And then for this side, I would use this one. And I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. But the next thing you can do is, if you didn't want to do columns, you could then do a full width column. And within this full width, you can either have like a hero image, so you can have a variety of different images, or you can have just one single image. So if I choose, let's say this one, and add that image, you'll see it bleeds all the way across. You can add a bunch of other, I guess what we can call them web parts. So these are different things like maps. You can add in different links and events. You can include an image gallery. So there's a variety of different things that you can do in here. It's limited in a way that per the design that they're building out, so that you can make it responsive, they've limited really to give you a subset of a lot of the web parts that you normally would have within SharePoint. So just for this example here, I'm going to publish the page. I can send that page to people. But here, my page has been built. You can see it's pretty basic. You do have the ability to add in comments below. So, oops. Post. People can reply. So it's a little bit of social components. Then the nice thing here also is the ability to have it mobile responsive. So here, if I were to look at it from a phone, it's pretty simple. It translates all of that directly, and I didn't have to do anything to make it mobile responsive. I didn't have to have any media queries or anything like that. So right off the bat, it's a pretty simple, easy way to create responsive pages. And there are some limitations on the layout. You get 1, 2, or 3. You know, adding in images inside of text, you know, gets a little bit difficult, but you are able to add in your own embedded code, which, so if there's anything complicated, there are things that you need to, you know, have a little bit more control on, you can do that. You just embed that. So I think that's a kind of a quick view of the publishing pages within the communication sites. They did update the same feature within team sites. So if I go to a team site and I go to pages, I can create a page within here as well, a site page. The one thing about this is it does include the left-hand side nav. So say I was to build this page out, again, you get pretty much the exact same features, except for the fact that if I wanted to add in one of these larger things here, you'll notice that the full width component is not included. I think that's somewhat of a limitation, but you know, I think the reasons for that is really just to kind of they're still working on trying to figure out how people utilize these team sites, and you know, if there is a way to kind of, you know, have all of those same features across the board. There are some, you know, things as you go through it that I think these will eventually kind of get to that same thing. But again, this is a point where you have the page here, you still have that left nav, whereas in the communication site, there's really that no left nav. It's really just a full page width, as you can see here. So this still is responsive. It actually kicks out the left nav after a certain point, and then you get back to that view of the mobile view. So I think they've made some pretty good progress there. The next thing that I was going to look at is so forms. This is what I created that other form. You see what are the key features in Office 365. This is kind of an interesting app where you can kind of just create a new form or survey. And then you start building out your questionnaire. So you can have a choice field, option 1, 2, 3. You can have just a plain text like you can have a rating scale. From the ratings, you can change it up to be numbers, so 1 through 10. And then you can have a choice, a date field. So there's a variety of different questions. The other one in here is a ranking. This is a kind of an interesting one where you can drag and drop them in different order. So let's say I'm done with this. I can then go to preview it, and here's my sort of form. I can answer that, rate it, and then here I can drag and drop and sort the order. So then from a mobile view, this is kind of what it would look like. So then at this point, you then share it. and you can copy the URL. You can then make it so that anyone can respond. So this is anonymous and it's open to anybody. So that's kind of interesting. It's not going to replace like SurveyMonkey or anything like that, where you can get really good complicated surveys out there, but it does do a very quick, if you just have a very simple survey, it does a pretty good job at that. So here you just see the responses. So then if I go back to forms here, if I go to responses, again, no response, but that's fine. The next one is really the, you can see here, this is an example where my custom one hasn't been applied. So if I go back to SharePoint here, this custom view that I had modified didn't apply over to the other one. But OneDrive, that's just your personal storage. Newsfeed is interesting. It's this is a central place for people to go and post. I think it carried over from the Newsfeed days of SharePoint. How people still utilize that, I'd be interested in seeing, especially with Teams and that kind of thing, where they're Slack, I think, is another big one where people would utilize that. But I'd be interested in if what organizations utilize the newsfeed and how often they use that. Delve, I think, is very interesting, where this will bring in a lot of the popular information that people are posting, so you can kind of share information easily that way, find people. Planner, I think, is a very interesting idea. It's sort of a way to organize sort of like a Kanban sort of style. So you can create tasks here. Let's see. Yeah, David, I agree. The newsfeed is old school. So live stream. So here I can then add in an additional task. I can create new buckets like completed or in progress. So then you can then just drag and drop these into these different sections. That moves. Oh, so that gets moved into these different sections here. Thought it was a drag and drop. But anyways, these are just different ways that you can work within these sections here. I add this. Pretty sure. There we go. So it is a bit of a where you drop it and how that moves over. There we go. So it's an interesting concept. I think like Trello does a really good job at this, but I think just sharing some basic tasks and being able to easily create tasks and share that with your team and have sort of a board, I think it does a good job at that. The interesting thing here is there's also these other task-based things. So tasks is just your Outlook tasks. So these are things that as you create tasks, you can see that. But there's a different version of tasks. It's called To Do, which is kind of interesting. It integrates with your task list as well. So here today I created these specific tasks, so I can check them off. So as I check them off, I can then go back to my task list or within Outlook, and that seamlessly integrates back and forth. So you can see I still have these. The other ones that are in here have already been completed. So also, it's an interesting thing. You got Planner, you got Tasks, you got To Do. There's other applications out there. I'd be interested at the adoption rate of some of these, and maybe this is just a, for yourself to kind of, do, but I'm sure this is one of those, like, you can get it on a mobile view, and it's pretty simple and easy to do. Maybe there's like your grocery list in here, but overall, I think I'd be interested in the adoption rate of how people utilize these things. Video is somewhat new. It's a place to kind of share videos across the organization. Here, I just uploaded a video. Yeah, David, I agree. So here, great swing. So here's just an example of uploading videos and being able to see those videos. I think they promoted videos or the video section quite a bit when it first came out, but then it was like, okay, so great, how do you utilize it? So it's a place to store videos. So I think from a marketing perspective, maybe it's a great place to do training videos and being able to organize those, but all in all, I think it's kind of, it is what it is. One of the last ones here that I thought is really kind of a different concept altogether is Sway. So Sway is a kind of a way to create pages, but in more of like a presentation style. So the way they have it here, they have a few examples just to kind of show you what those look like. They're really just kind of basic pages with content, utilizing the new page creation. And as I started using it, I was kind of like, okay, would I go to a whole separate app to go and look at and do that? Or would I, just go to my content pages and create pages? So here's an example. I created one. I can create a new one, but I just started putting in content, text, some images, same concepts. I can then, add in some additional one. I can add in heading. It took a while for me to kind of get an idea of what this was going to look like. So there's one, it's interesting because you have a presentation that's vertical like this, but then when you go to play it, it kind of then completely changes up the way it's presented. And I know there's different ways to kind of configure that, but it was definitely like, oh, okay, so it's a horizontal scroll, and then you can kind of change out how this flows. But I think it kind of took me back for a second of like, why is this out here? What is it? What is it there to do? So I think, it's interesting, but I'm not really sure how I would utilize that. Here's an example. If I create from scratch this newsletter, it kind of gives me these different templates. So again, I'm not 100% sure I get it, but maybe it's just a quick way to do a notification or something like that. Maybe I just need to explore it more. And if you have ideas, examples, then happy to learn more. The next one they have is Stream. So Stream is another interesting one. I don't know if they're trying to, be similar to YouTube or some of those other things, but to me it seems like this is another place to share videos. Uploading videos, or maybe this Stream will replace video. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like an interesting concept to share videos, content, that kind of thing. But again, I haven't really utilized it or used it, so interested to see what other people would use it for. All right, what's on my list here? So I think a lot of the other things like mail, calendar, Teams is a big component. Teams is really blowing up. I think Teams is going to be something that, again, it's going to be replacing Skype probably, and it's going to be utilized quite heavily. I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest things that people utilize Office 365 for. But I think, I still get kind of confused of, is this my corporate intranet? Is this going to be my place to go to do all of my work? Is it going to be organized enough that I can, have my sites all here and still be able to do my work effectively and navigate? So I think it's an interesting concept to put all of your tools in one spot, and especially your Office products like your Word and PowerPoint. But again, it's will this model of having all your sites accessed here via search kind of replace like that main landing page that people would have as their portals. So I think all in all, the features that they're putting out there are very interesting. I think they're solving a need, but it is a little bit of a mishmash of different things. I'm not seeing sort of the holistic view of, here's what you do to be productive, do your day-to-day job. I think overall, I think it's going in the right direction from the Pages perspective and the communication template. And yes, SharePoint still has team sites and be able to upload documents, and I think they still have a lot to work on that, just to update the user experience to be consistent. But overall, I kind of see the direction and interested in what other people are thinking about that. So I think at this point, if anybody else has any questions or things that they want me to go through, happy to kind of jump into those different areas. Otherwise, I'm going to end the stream a little bit early just so that people can go back to their day jobs. But I appreciate you taking your time out to review this. I am going to post this onto my YouTube channel just to as a recording. But if anything else, I appreciate your time. Thanks.